I'm Michael Weber, Artistic Director of Chicago's Porchlight Music Theater. Today is another special edition of Classic Musicals from the Golden Age of Radio with our special guest, Jeff Award-nominated actor and director Johanna McKenzie Miller, who has appeared in numerous productions at the Drury Lane, Court Theater, Northlight, Chicago Shakespeare, and the Goodman Theater, among others. Her directing credits include productions at First Folio, Porchlight Music Theater, and the upcoming production of Kiss Me, Kate at the Marriott Theatre. Hello, Johanna.
Hello.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Hey. Opening December 30th, 1948 at the New Century Theater before transferring to the Schubert Theater, Kiss Me, Kate, with music and lyrics by Cole Porter and a book by Bella and Samuel Spiewak, was the only show by Cole Porter to run for more than 1,000 performances on Broadway. The story of ex-spouses who happened to be stage stars performing in a musical version of Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew, a colorful cast of secondary characters including the actress playing Bianca and her gambler boyfriend who run afoul of some gangsters, populate this tuneful and dancey show that won the very first Tony Award for Best Musical. So, Johanna, as somebody who is going to be directing this sort of one of the big favorite shows from Broadway, let's go back to the beginnings of this show. Let's talk a little bit about how it all started. This was a Cole Porter musical in the 1940s, in the late 40s. We know Cole Porter as this composer, you know, who wrote Anything Goes and all of these like super 1930s swanky, elegant shows. Where was Cole Porter in his career by this point, in the late 1940s? What was going on?
Yeah, so he had, like you said, had some big successes in the 30s. He had kind of an interesting career where he would put out some stuff that would be sort of meh, like reviewed and then he would have a big hit, and then it would sort of kind of be, he would kind of go have some not so successful things, and then Anything Goes comes along. By this time, he had already started writing for Hollywood, like for some movies, and had some success out there. And he was writing a lot also in Europe. He had a place in Paris that he lived in with his wife as well. So he was kind of all over the place. He was a super prolific writer. He had, you know, if you look at his history, he's got shows opening every year on Broadway. I mean, it's just incredible. So by this point, he had kind of had a big success, and he was sort of looking for another Broadway hit, because he'd had Jubilee and Red Hot and Blue, and then like Dewberry Was a Lady had come out, and that was a big hit, and that was again late 30s. So I think that answered your question. So he was kind of looking, I think, for another opportunity to shine and have another successful, like a production.
Right.
You know.
But he's at a point in his career where he's had a few flops on Broadway. And
yes,
I think from what I understand, people were kind of thinking that at this point that Cole Porter was kind of through, like his career had dried up a bit by the time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because he had a series of shows that were successful shows, but there were no real songs that came out, because he was this is a time when pop songs came out of musicals, and right. He hadn't had any hits, anything like that. And then in 44 and 46, there were a couple actual flops, what they would consider, and people thought he was sort of done. So in terms of, you know, his best work was behind him, if you will. And then he, you know, comes up with this hugely successful, extremely tuneful show of Kiss Me, Kate.
And it's a collaboration, of course. I mean, the success nor the blame of any show can be put on one member of the team. In this particular case, with Kiss Me, Kate, he's collaborating with a team here, Bella and Samuel Spiewak. Tell us a little bit about who were they.
So he had worked with them previously on a musical called, I have it here somewhere, Leave It to Me, and that was in 1938. And yeah, and they were, Bella and Samuel Spiewak were a married couple who were a writing pair. By the time they were working on Kiss Me Kate, their marriage was in some trouble. They were separated at that point. And actually, many of the sources that I have found and things I have read, really Bella Spiewak was kind of the lead writer on the piece. And in fact, she is the one who recommended or who brought the project to Cole Porter, that she was interested in him writing the music. And her husband at the time, Samuel Spiewak, I think there are some sources say he didn't even want credit at all, but Cole Porter encouraged him to appear as a writing partner so that they felt like the audiences would more readily accept a couple, the married couple. We're still at a time in the 40s, late 40s, and some would say even today that a woman's worth was really measured by her husband and what her husband did. And so for her work to be taken seriously, they felt like they needed his name on it as well. And he contributed. He did some of the gangster stuff. He contributed mostly in that arena, I think, at least from what I've read.
And they were a writing team as well. So there's probably value, I think, you're thinking from a marketing standpoint of instead of breaking up the team to keeping the team because they had successes writing particularly comedies, a lot of comedies on Broadway that were very successful. So we've got a show that's going to be about an arguing couple being written by a couple who is arguing. And we've also got there's another inspiration of another couple, from what I understand, the Shakespearean acting couple of Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontaine. Who they had a very famous tour of Taming of the Shrew, where they apparently were taking liberties with the choreography, if you will, on each other, and audiences were thrilled by this. And so people were, going to see their production of Taming of the Shrew, to see them kind of going at each other in ways that were perhaps not choreographed. And so, so that was a bit of inspiration of how, sort of the blurred lines. If you are a fan of Kiss Me Kate or read it or watch it or whatever, there are moments when they're on stage in the scenes and you can't tell who's talking. You kind of have to do a little digging as the actor or director to see, like, wait, is this a Kate line? Is she? And even if he is saying the Kate or Petruchio language, it really blurs the lines between actor and character, and and then they take advantage of using the language to get at each other, which is a fun and task to kind of dig through. And keeping the poetry while making sure you get in your dig.
Right.
So around this time, then again, it's the late 1940s on Broadway. Cole Porter has his big hits in the 1930s with sort of that loose, free-for-all, vaudeville-y, but lots of hit tune kind of show. And somewhere in the early 1940s, there's a change kind of happening on Broadway that's going to affect everybody, right? Including Cole Porter.
Yes.
Rodgers and Hammerstein show up.
Yeah. And they're doing more work that is, story driven, and the tunes, the songs, the lyrics are like really forwarding the narrative and the storytelling in those works. And so it's that kind of crossover, like you mentioned, from sort of the vaudeville review kind of feel of a show, where we have these kind of standalone pieces that are kind of plugged in to an existing, or not existing, but to the storyline, kind of pastiche, if you will. And they're really writing with a larger arc in mind, and using, like I said, the lyrics to really forward the plot and the narrative.
Right.
And so that's a challenge, I think, for Cole Porter, because he's such a clever and witty lyricist, and he really can get wrapped up in a turn of phrase and the cleverness of it, which you sometimes it doesn't lend itself to moving along a narrative, because he kind of gets wrapped up in like the jewel of his cleverness, if you will. And so they're really fun, his list songs and his pattery songs, but it's not necessarily moving the story forward. So trying to find that balance, I think, with Kiss Me, Kate.
Right. And it seems like he and maybe Irving Berlin and Jerome Kern, some of those old school Broadway writers, really had to answer to these new upstarts, Rodgers and Hammerstein, who really just changed the game, forcing them to have to adapt and make this late career adjustment. And it sounds like Cole Porter, knocked it out of the park with this one, surprising everybody. To go, no, I'm still here. I'm still
relevant. Yeah. And, like you're saying, even Rodgers and Hammerstein, if you look at the content of their shows, they're taking on big issues of the day, big social issues of the day. It's not just the sort of frothy entertainment anymore. It's they have something to say. And I feel like there is something to say in Kiss Me, Kate. And I feel like Bella Spiewak is really writing with a female point of view in the piece. There are earlier drafts of the show, apparently, that I'm trying to get a hold of, actually, but that Kate had, Lily and Catherine in the Taming the Shrew parts have more agency. There's actually kind of more of a Rosalind feel. Some early drafts have Kate cross-dressing, which is a very Shakespearean idea, showing up as a boy at the very top and meeting Petruchio. So instead of Hortensio, if you're familiar with the show, he meets in the show, Petruchio comes and meets his friend Hortensio. He meets this boy who then is the one to say, oh, you should woo this woman, who happens to be the person, the boy dressed, the woman dressed as the boy. And even the song, Were Thine That Special Face, was originally intended for Bella Spiewak, intended that to be the boy singing this to Petruchio. And again, the times, perhaps it's an all male production team, all this stuff, a male director. They really edited her work quite a bit and decided, no, we don't want to go that direction, and really wanted a more traditional Catherine. And so I think that, Bella Spiewak was writing, and I still think it's in there in the text of Kiss Me, Kate. There's this contentious relationship with Fred and this woman who is a star in her own right, and the decisions she's making to come back and be in this play, and then when she decides to leave and come back at the end. So it really is, I think it is kind of holds its own amongst those other pieces with a bigger social picture happening.
Right. Well, let's listen to the show, and then we'll come back on the other side of it and talk a little bit more about the show itself, as well as more on Kiss Me, Kate. So now, here on the March 24th, 1952 episode of the Railroad Hour are Patrice Munzel as Lily and also as Kate, and Gordon MacRae as Fred, as well as Petruchio in Kiss Me, Kate.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Railroad Hour. Here comes our star-studded show train. Tonight, the Association of American Railroads presents the great Broadway musical hit by Cole Porter and Bella and Samuel Spiewak, Kiss Me, Kate, starring Gordon MacRae and his celebrated guest, Patrice Munsell. Our choir is under the direction of Norman Luboff, and the music is prepared and conducted by Carmen Dragon. Yes, tonight another great musical success is brought to you by the American Railroads, the same railroads that bring you most of the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the fuel you burn, and all the other things you use in your daily life. And now, here is our star, Gordon MacRae.
Marvin Miller, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, Patrice Munsell and I are going to give you our impression of some of the memorable moments from one of the most delightful musicals of our time. In Kiss Me, Kate, Cole Porter and Bella and Samuel Spiewak fashioned a play within a play.
And it's all about the excitement of the theater. We're a couple of actors. My name is Lily Vanessi.
And my name is Fred Graham.
We used to be married, and we're meeting for the first time in several years to star together in a revival of Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew.
I'm the tamer.
And I'm the shrew.
It begins on an empty stage in Baltimore.
Not empty, but filled with the excitement, the glamour, the fast heartbeat of an opening night.
At last will make your future forget your past.
Another pain where the ulcers grow.
Another opening of another show. 4 weeks you rehearse and rehearse.
3 weeks and it couldn't be worse.
1 week, will it ever be right? Then out of the hands that big bird night. Your overture is about to start. You cross your fingers and hold your heart. It's curtain time and away we go. Another opening, just another opening of another show. I went to see Lily in a dressing room to wish her luck. But the old fight started the minute we got together.
Will you kindly stop upstaging me, Mr. Graham?
And I will thank you, Miss Vanessi, to stop calling me vile names on the stage.
Oh, Fred, do you know what day this is? Our anniversary. And you forgot.
What anniversary?
The first anniversary of our separation.
Oh.
You have no sentiment. Here.
Oh, a champagne cork. You've saved it all this time from our wedding breakfast.
Our wedding breakfast in my apartment.
You mean that one room over the Armenian bakery?
You're a fine one to complain.
Remember? It was right after we closed in the road in a British Viennese operetta that was laid in Switzerland.
But the costumes were Dutch.
And I was understudying the lead. I was the youngest understudy in the business.
No, dear. We were both in the chorus. There was a waltz in it. Remember? Something about a bar?
Yeah. Madam, you are ravishing tonight. You have made me the happiest of men.
Your Highness.
Wunderbar!
Wunderbar!
Wunderbar! Wunderbar! What a perfect night for love.
Here am I, here you are.
Why, it's truly wunderbar. Wunderbar! Wunderbar! We're alone and hand in glove.
Not a cloud near or far.
Why, it's more than wunderbar.
Say you care, dear.
For you madly,
Say you long, dear.
for your kiss,
Do you swear, dear?
darling, gladly.
Life's devoted, dear.
And you're mine, dear. Wunderbar, wunderbar. There's our favorite star above. What a bright, shining star. Like our love, it's wunderbar. There's an old saying in the theater. Any opening night is a combination of magic and a curse. The magic was on stage that night, and the jinx was backstage. Bill Calhoun of the company had gambled away $10,000 in a floating crap game and signed my name to the IOU. So there were two gangsters backstage pointing their pockets in my direction. And on top of that, a bouquet I sent to Lois Lane, one of the younger gals of the company, who got into the wrong dressing room.
Flowers for Miss Lily Vanessi.
Oh, snowdrops and pansies and rosemary. My wedding bouquet. He didn't forget. Fred didn't forget. Strange, dear, but true, dear. When I'm close to you, dear, the stars fill the sky. So in love with you, I'm even without you. My arms fold about you. You know, darling, why fall in love with you am I. In love with the night mysterious. The night when you first were there. In love with my dream Siberia. When I knew that you could care. So taunt me and hurt me, deceive me, desert me, and yet Fred, the bouquet is beautiful.
Bouquet? Oh, yes, the bouquet.
I haven't read the card yet.
On stage, everybody.
Oh, don't read it. I'll tell you what it says. To Lily, the only woman I've ever loved, the only artist I've ever worshipped. Now give me the card and you can read it after the show.
Oh, Fred, did you really mean that?
With all my heart.
Then that's where I'm going to put the card. Next to my heart.
Oh.
There. And Fred, dear, I'll never call you vile names again. Never.
You will, my sweet. You will.
Curtain going up, places everybody. Street scene, Padua, Act 1, Scene 1. The Taming of the Shrew.
Not stars like L.B. Mayers, are we?
But just a simple band who roams around the land, dispensing for the raw frivolity. If over in distraction are we?
No theater guild attraction are we?
But just a crazy group who never sees the truth around the map of next play, Corona, then on to Cremona.
Lots of laughs in Cremona.
Our next stop is Parma, that dingy, dingy Venice.
Then Mantua.
Then Padua.
Then we open again.
Where?
We open in Venice. We next play, Corona, then on to Cremona.
Lots of dough in Cremona.
Our next stop is Parma, that goby, moby menace.
Then Mantua.
Then Padua.
Then we open again.
Where?
In Venice.
Well, all you Shakespeare scholars know what happens in Taming of the Shrew. The cantankerous Catherine can't find a husband until the handsome, charming, witty, gracious Petruchio, me, arrives in Padua with this little ditty on his lips. I've come to wive it wealthily in Padua. If wealthily, then happily in Padua. If my wife has a bag of gold, do I care if the bag is old? I've come to wive it wealthily in Padua.
He's come to wive it wealthily in Padua.
I heard you mutter, sounds a loathsome lad you are. I shall not be disturbed a bit if she be but a quarter wit, if she can only talk of clothes while she powders her doggone nose. I've come to wive it wealthily in Padua.
He's come to wive it wealthily in Padua.
I heard you say, gadzooks, completely mad you are. Wouldn't give me the slightest shock if her knees now and then should knock, if her eyes were a wee bit crossed, were she wearing the hair she'd lost. I've come to wive it wealthily in Padua,
with the honey, and the hey, hey, hey.
not to mention money, money for a rainy day. I've come to wive it wealthily in Padua.
Methinks Petruchio is a man like all the rest, and you don't have to be a Shakespearean scholar to know my opinion of men. I hate men. I can't abide them even now and then. Of all the types I've ever met within our democracy, I hate the most the athlete with his manner bold and brassy. He may have hair upon his chest, but sister, so has Lassie. Oh, I hate men. I hate men. Their worth upon this earth I dinna ken. From all I've read alone in bed, from A to Z about them, since love is blind, then from the mind all womankind should rout them. But ladies, you must answer to, what would we do without them? Oh, I hate men.
It was at that point that she started hating men off stage as well as on. You see, she discovered the card and the flowers addressed to Lois.
Sending my bouquet to that.
All right, I sent the child some flowers.
But listen to this card. Let my lovely Lois shine through tonight, and there'll be a new star in the heavens. Thou jerk.
Lily.
Listen, I'm quitting the show. I'm not even going on for the Act 1 finale.
Lily, you can't do that. That's when I got a brilliant idea. The two gangsters backstage. I told them that they'd never be paid if the show closed, and close it would if Lily walked out. So, in the finale, the lovely Catherine was escorted on stage by two of the toughest-looking henchmen you ever saw in Padua, with guns in their togas. Come, my bonny Kate. I said come. To the marriage feast. So kiss me, Kate, and twice and thrice. Every start living in paradise. Oh, kiss me, Kate, darling angel divine. For now thou shalt ever be. Now thou shalt ever be. Mine, mine, and mine, and mine, and mine.
Kiss Me, Kate in just a moment. Have you ever stopped to think about all the things you may find on a railroad passenger train? A train is a lot more than just a string of cars pulled by an engine. It may be looked on really as a home on wheels, a traveling hotel, ready for your convenience and comfort. So if you travel on business, the train is for you. It starts in town. It runs in all kinds of weather. And it saves you precious time because it has facilities and opportunities for study, for work, for conference, or for relaxation, and for sleeping as you ride to arrive in town, rested and ready for the day ahead. And when you and your family plan your vacation this year, make up your mind to go in air-conditioned comfort by train. That way you leave behind the strain of long, hard driving on crowded highways. Your vacation begins the minute you step on your train. You enjoy to the full the conveniences of your hotel on wheels, where all the work of traveling is done for you, where you are sure of good food and good sleeping, where you enjoy relaxation and comfort as you watch the endlessly fascinating American scene unroll before your eyes. You'll not only have a wonderful time on the way, but when you arrive, you'll be fresh, really rested, and ready to have the time of your life in whatever part of America's fabulous vacation land you choose. Then, when it's time to leave, your traveling hotel is again waiting to serve you, ready to take you swiftly, safely, and comfortably home. That way, the railroad way, you will arrive refreshed, happily treasuring memories of the most wonderful vacation you ever enjoyed.
Hi, this is Porchlight Audience Services Manager August Compton. Thank you for listening to WPMT. If you value programming like this, please consider making a donation today at porchlightmusictheater.org. We appreciate your consideration and hope you enjoy the show.
Now here is Act Two of our Railroad Hour impression of the great Porter Spiewak hit Kiss Me, Kate, starring Gordon MacRae and Patrice Munsell.
Our stage performance of Taming of the Shrew went merrily on its way. And the lovely Lily Vanessi was turning into as much of a shrew offstage as on. And my offstage self longed to tame her as much as my onstage self. So I meant every word I sang to that lovely, adorable shrew. Were thine that special face, the face which fills my dreaming, were thine the rhythmed grace, were thine the form so lithe and slender, were thine the arms so warm, so tender, were thine the kiss divine, were thine the love for me, the love which fills my dreaming. When all these charms are thine, then you'll be
Men aren't the only ones with tricks up their sleeves. I knew a way to tantalize my ex-husband. Jealousy. I'd tell him about all the men I'd known. If a custom-tailored vet asked me out for something wet, when the vet begins to pet, I cry hooray! That I'm always true to you, darling, in my fashion. Yes, I'm always true to you, darling, in my way. From Ohio, Mr. Thorne calls me up from night till morn. Various checks, I fear, mean the tax is here to stay. But I'm always true to you, darling, in my fashion. Yes, I'm always true to you, darling, in my way. Mr. Harris, plutocrat, wants to give my cheek a pat. If the Harris pat means a Paris hat, baby, mais je suis toujours fidèle, darling, in my fashion. Oui, je suis toujours fidèle, darling, in my way.
It was at that point that our opening night began to look like our closing night. Because the two gangsters found out their boss had been bumped off and left the theater. So Lily was no longer playing the role of Catherine at the point of a pistol. And that means you're free to go, Lily. Nobody's forcing you to stay. You don't have to finish the show.
Thank you. Doorman, call me a cab, please.
Oh, Lily. And I thought I detected a new note of softness, a spark of affection, a glimmer of love.
You're not going to hypnotize me, Svengali.
You can't walk out on me now, Lily.
You walked out on me once.
But I came back.
Your cab's waiting, Miss Vanessa.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Good night, Lily. Strange, dear, but true, dear, that I'm close to you, dear. The stars fill the sky, so in love with you am I. Even without you, my arms fold about you. You know, darling, why so in love with you am I. In love with a night mysterious, the night when you first were there. In love with a joy delirious, when I knew that you could care. So taunt me and hurt me, deceive me, desert me. I'm yours till I die. So in love, so in love, so in love with you, my love, am I. So I went on stage in the closing moments of Taming of the Shrew, prepared to play the scene without Catherine, ad-libbing around her speeches.
My dear Bianca and her newfound spouse, Brother Petruchio, daughter Catherine, feast with the best and welcome to my house. But where is Catherine? Where is she, Petruchio?
She will not come. The fouler fortune mine, and there an end.
What is your will, sir?
Darling, you came back. Catherine, that cap of yours becomes you not. Off with the bauble and throw it underfoot.
Yes, my lord and husband. I am ever and always your servant and your slave.
Why, there's a wench. Come on and kiss me, Kate. Oh, kiss me, Kate. And twice and thrice. Ere we start living in paradise. Oh, you, ladies and gentlemen. Patrice Mansell will be back in just a moment. Kiss Me, Kate, with music and lyrics by Cole Porter and book by Bella and Samuel Spiewak, was dramatized for the Railroad Hour by Lawrence and Lee. The Railroad Hour is brought to you each week at this time by the American Railroads. This year marks the 40th anniversary of Girl Scouting in the United States. And in the years since this organization was formed, it has helped millions of girls develop into happy, self-reliant adults and real assets to their community and their country. Today, more than 1,800,000 Girl Scouts are having fun while serving their communities and learning to be good citizens. So, happy 40th anniversary, Girl Scouts, and keep up the good work. Now, here again is the delightful Patrice Mansell.
Thank you, Gordon. Oh, that wonderful music and that delightful story.
And the pride and joy of the Met smiling at me across the microphone.
And put down your whip, boy. Just talk. You tame me. Who's on the show train next week, Gordon?
Well, Blanche Tabom is our guest, Pat, and we'll be singing Countess Maritza.
Oh, we'll all be listening. Good night, Gordon.
Good night, Pat. Friends, before we go, there's no way to appeal to a tornado. I can only appeal to you. Tornadoes which swept through 6 southern states, destroyed thousands of homes, and hospitalized hundreds. These people need your help. Answer the call, will you? Give generously through your American Red Cross. All aboard! Well, sir, it looks as though we're ready to pull out, and so until next Monday night, this is Gordon MacRae saying goodbye.
Gordon MacRae can be seen starring in Warner Brothers' About Face. Our choir is under the direction of Norman Luboff, and our music is prepared and conducted by Carmen Dragon. This is Marvin Miller saying goodbye until next week for the American Railroad. Now keep tuned for your Monday night of music on NBC.
That was Kiss Me, Kate, on the March 24th, 1952 episode of the Railroad Hour with Patrice Mansell. She was the youngest singer ever to star at the Metropolitan Opera, and she was very well known for roles in The Fledermaus, and at least she appeared 225 times at the Metropolitan Opera. She was a huge star, and I always enjoyed how they would bring opera stars to sing these wonderful, legit scores onto the Railroad Hour. Gordon MacRae, of course, the host of the show and the star of the broadcast itself as a regular series host, appeared in the film versions, of course, of 2 Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, Oklahoma and Carousel. He had a big film career with a number of movies, some with Doris Day, on Moonlight Bay and By the Light of the Silvery Moon. And they made a really good pair, I thought, in this show. Why, Johanna, do you think that Kiss Me, Kate is still so popular today as a show? Why do we still see this show from 1948?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. One, I think, are the songs. I think the Cole Porter score is, it's just chock full of songs. If you've never seen Kiss Me, Kate, but you're someone who's listened to music, I feel like you could go to the show and you'd be like, oh, he wrote that. Oh, he wrote that. I didn't know that he wrote that. There's just tune after tune after tune. And it's so you can kind of forget about the troubling content because you get, these huge dance numbers, and the opportunity to get to be backstage with a cast for a theater audience, because the show, takes place backstage and on stage, is I think is pretty exciting for a theater audience because it's a piece of the puzzle they don't usually get to see. So I think that's part of why it's also why it's popular. Taming of the Shrew is still a very popular title for Shakespeare companies as well. And again, it's got some troubling content. And there's not to get too sort of political about it, but, globally and in our own country, women are still, an at-risk community. And so seeing these stories can be, triggering or troubling for many people. And this is kind of a segue, but I think it takes, you kind of have to handle it carefully because people do want to enjoy the music and the show and also the period, the period costumes and sort of that remembering that time. And I just kind of feel like we just have to be careful in a modern day to also remember, and I think you just have to handle it carefully. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's funny, those gangsters, which are completely out if you're familiar with the show, and they don't really appear in the radio hour, which is one of the kind of interesting things they did in there. They reference them, but you don't get that Brush Up Your Shakespeare, which is this amazing song that is kind of out of nowhere in the show. Mm-hmm. But they're incredible characters. They're hilarious. And you really believe these two, hard-boiled gangsters are somewhere deep down longing to be refined thespians. And they really spent their time in the library, combing through sonnets or something, and it's such a juxtaposition of what you expect. Mm-hmm. And I think the show is kind of like that. It's full of all of these surprises, which I'm having a great time discovering.
Right. So a hugely popular show in 1948 when it appears on Broadway. It, of course, then gets made into a movie in 1953. It's in 3D because it's the early 50s, and that was the popular thing of the day. So it's a musical with numbers, one of the early musicals that was made in 3D. How do you think that it transferred to film for something that's so stage-oriented? Did it make for a good movie, in your opinion, or do you think it stayed better on the stage?
I like movies, and I like movie musicals, so I really enjoy the movie musical of it. And one of the nice things about when you're doing a film is you can take the characters out onto the roof and give them an incredible number where they're, dancing on the rooftop, and either you can switch locations so quickly, and their stage is a sound stage, obviously. So it can become this much larger than life experience that when you're in the confines of a theater, we have to find other ways to transport the audience in that way. And so I think they did a good, I do think it's a nice adaptation of it. It's interesting, like you said, it's very 50s in the costuming and the very presentational nature of it. But I think it holds up.
Mm-hmm. And it's been revived since the movie. It's been on Broadway quite famously. Just a few years ago, it had a big Broadway revival. But they did some revisions to it. I think to some degree addressing what you're talking about earlier. That when we get into reviving it on stage now, we kind of have to deal with it.
Yes.
And is that what your approach is going to be in your production that you'll be directing? Are you making some adjustments, or are you sticking more to the original version?
We are sticking more to the original. We did reach out and get copies of the script of the revival, the Broadway revival, to see if there was anything in there that I wanted to use. And there are some things. There's more of the Shakespeare's put back in. Some of it is repaired, if you will. Bella Spiewak, she admitted herself she was not a Shakespeare scholar. And so she was nervous about handling the Shakespeare. And so in some cases, some of the Shakespeare is kind of repaired. But I really believe if you're going to do a piece like Taming of the Shrew or Kiss Me, Kate, that the challenge for me is taking the existing text and thinking maybe outside the box, or handling what's on the page and honoring that, and finding a way to deal with it. Really, there were some pretty significant changes made to Kate's last speech. It's a song in Kiss Me, Kate, and they changed. Kate says, "I'm ashamed that women are so simple," and it goes on. And in the revival, they said that people are so simple, and it just makes it, for my taste, it makes it a little vague. And I think, as I said before, women are still at risk in globally, and second and third class citizens in some places. And so I think it's important to dig into and try to determine what the intention was. We don't know what Shakespeare intended. We can't. People have made entire careers trying to figure that out. And so it's just up to us to kind of put our own microscope on it and dig through. And because I feel like in some ways Bella Spiewak maybe was trying to be heard and write her own story of a woman trying to make it in this business on her own, I think for me, it's really been interesting and important to dig into Lily and her story, the woman who plays Kate, the actress who plays Kate, played by another actress, and see where it is, taking what she says, sometimes at face value, but sometimes recognizing that it's just, we have to wear these masks a lot of times as women and kind of fit into the world to make it right. And certainly in 1948, there were expectations of how women should behave and could behave. And anyway, so I find it more challenging to take what's on the page and address that.
Right. Well, I think Bella Spiewak is very fortunate to have you as the director of her play as it's upcoming, and I'm so excited to see it. Thank you, Johanna McKenzie Miller, for joining me today and learning a little bit more from you about Kiss Me, Kate, as well as not only what this production was, but what you're going to be doing with it and how you're going to make it a fantastic production. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Theaters across the country need your support now, more than ever. We hope you'll consider a donation to Porchlight Music Theater today. Just go to porchlightmusictheater.org. Until next time on Classic Musicals from the Golden Age of Radio, I'm Michael Weber.